Welcome to my presentation today on creating a live London Underground line status bot in Dataverse for Teams using Power Virtual Agents, Power Automate, Azure Management API, and Azure Functions. Apologies for the long title. I just, was struggling to get the technologies in. A little about me. My name is Leon Armston, and I'm a Microsoft 365 Solutions Consultant at Intelogy in London, in the United Kingdom. You can find details below on how you can connect with me. You can check out my blog, leonarmston.com, or find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or GitHub. I will now outline the functionality that I want to showcase on this demo. So in my opinion, one of the most exciting new features of Dataverse for Teams is the ability to leverage Microsoft Azure API Management. This allows citizen developers to use Azure Management API-backed custom connectors in Power Apps or Power Automate in a Dataverse for Teams environment. So this means you can connect to, using the Azure API, Management API, you can connect to Azure resources, i.e. Azure Functions to run PowerShell or code. But the good thing is that all of this is available using your current seeded Teams licensing. So this is a great opportunity to use this exciting new technology with your customers or organization today. So I wanted to use Power Virtual Agents in Dataverse for Teams to build a live interactive bot. As it's Dataverse for Teams, the bot can only be used from the Teams application or Teams web client, so there are some restrictions. But with your bot, you can interact with any live API, i.e. transportation, sports results, weather, recipes, or even there's Chuck Norris API for quotations. So you may recall a previous demo I did on the London Underground where I created a live interactive London Underground line status board that used Power Automate and SharePoint view formatting. So over the Christmas period, much to the annoyance of my wife, I decided to spend time extending my previous London Underground theme and created a proof of concept London Underground line status bot. I will now use this diagram to explain the solution. So watch my mouse. It consists of a Power Virtual Agents bot running in a Dataverse for Teams environment for a specific Microsoft team. We can see the Dataverse for Teams environment perimeter highlighted in purple. So the user sends a message, the trigger phrase of, are there any delays? Power Virtual Agents then recognizes the trigger word, selects the correct topic, which then triggers a flow in Power Automate, which then connects to a custom connector, and that's where it gets exciting. The custom connector is then goes out to my Azure tenant and connects to the Azure Management API instance, which then connects to an Azure function. The Azure function then runs some PowerShell, which via a web request connects to the London Underground line status API to provide the line status. And then finally, that's all returned back along the tree, all the way back to the Power Virtual Agent, and it returns the line status. I'll go into this in more detail, but that's at a high level. I will now demo my solution to you. So the London Underground provides an API and also a web page with the line status. So we're using this information that is then published to an API. So applications can call into this API and get the latest line status. So I'll now show you my bot, which you could build. So I'll type the trigger phrase of line status, but there's many other trigger phrases that it responds to. So it's glad to report, and it asks me which line I'm interested in. So I'll type central. So that's the central line, and then it connects to the TFL API via Power Automate via Azure, and yeah, it says that there's no delays on the central line. I'll type the trigger phrase again. But this time I'll type some random characters, and obviously there's not a line that's called after those characters. So I then have some smarts where it's then gives me a list of all the line names. So I'll select the Waterloo and City line, and it will return that there's no service until further notice. So now let me show you how this is put together. So in your Teams client, under Dataverse for Teams, you can access Power Virtual Agents. So I'm in there now, and I go to chatbots, and I can, when it loads, I can see my Power Virtual Agents bots that I've previously made in Dataverse for Teams. So I select the London Underground Dataverse for Teams environment. I can see my bot here called Tubi. I select Tubi, and then this will load my chatbots. I'm interested in the topics, so these are the rules of the responses to the questions asked to the bot. So I'll go to line status, which I configured, and we can see all the trigger phrases for this bot. So when these trigger phrases are spoken, this topic is initiated. So I'll go to the authoring canvas now, and this is the topic in logical order with all the rules. So we can see the trigger phrases that we just discussed, and then we can see that there's a message and it asks a question. We'll test the bot here by typing the trigger phrase again. And we can see that, Power Virtual Agents indicates in green where you are in the action tree. So we can see that we're up to question, which line are you interested in? And that corresponds to down here where it says which line are you interested in. And we can type the central line, and then we'll go further down the tree and to the response. But I just want to go back and show you that it goes to Power Automate, and that's where it connects to a custom connector and goes and gets the live API results. We've also got the smarts here for if the line name is not found, then we have the option to select from a button all of the 15 London Underground lines. So I'm going to go to the flow in Power Automate and show you how that's done and how it connects with a custom connector. So if I edit the flow, I'm not going to go into great detail because this is quite complex, this Power Automate flow, but the first trigger initiation is it's asking for the line name. So the topic provides the line name that we typed in. Then if we go to here, this is a custom connector that I built. So this connects to Azure Management API and queries the London Underground line status API. So first of all, it's secured with a subscription key that only I know, so it can't be remotely triggered anonymously. And then it requests the line name from the first action. Then that queries the API, and if there's a matching line name, we formulate the response if there's any reported delays or if there's delays expected. But if we formulate that all in Markdown language, so we make things bold, we make things headers, so it's nicely formatted for the users, and then we return all that back to the user in the topic. So I'm now going to go to Azure to show all the components for this. So you will need an Azure subscription to do this. But the custom connector, it connects directly to the Azure Management API service that I've got. So that's a web layer that you can deploy in your Azure environment and then publish your own APIs to it. So you could publish an API direct from a Logic app, an app service, or a function app. In my case, I'm going to, well, I've already deployed a function app. So that's called line status. So this is a web API, and we can go into the front end and see that it's a post request and that it wants to query parameters, the subscription key and line name. So you may remember in the custom connector in Power Automate, we had two text boxes asking first for the subscription key and secondly for the line name. So that's where they come from. And then if we go to the back end, so we can see the back end of the API over this right-hand side is it's linked to an Azure function app. And that function app is called London Tubes. So if we go to London Tubes, in the function app, within functions, click on our function. With this will now load up the PowerShell that powers this script. So I'll just go through this. We have the first part is where it's initiated by the line name. So if a line name is supplied to it, that then populates this line name variable over here. And that's coming from the request at the beginning. Now that then feeds into the line name, the if statement. So that's this box here. And we have the special part here is we use invoke web request to target the TFL Transport for London Tube Status API. So instead of Power Automate, you would use a HTTP connector, which would be a premium connector. We're using PowerShell invoke web request and just sending over the web request there. We convert that to a object in PowerShell. So what happens is all of the line statuses are returned. So we need to filter it by the line name. So that's what's happening here. And then finally, we convert it back to JSON format, ready for Power Automate to use. The next part of the if statement we don't really use, but that returns all lines without filtering. So if you wanted to do something in your Power Automate with all lines, that's what you would use. And then finally, the last part is where we return the response back to the function and back to the custom connector and back to Power Automate. So I'll now just show you how easy it is to, after you've created your API, to publish it to Power Apps or to Power Automate as a custom connector. So we can click on Power Apps or Power Automate, and then it will publish it to your instance. So let me just return back to my demo and do a quick recap. So to recap, this solution uses Power Virtual Agents in Microsoft Teams in Dataverse for Teams to provide a London Underground line status bot. A user asks a question to the bot about a particular line, and then the line status topic is triggered, which then triggers a flow in Power Automate. A custom connector is then used in the flow, which connects to an Azure Management API instance, which triggers an Azure function. The Azure function then runs a PowerShell invoke web request command to connect to the London Underground line status API. Finally, this information is returned to the user by a bot. And that's all. So thank you for your time today and for watching my presentation. Below is a link to my blog and a direct link to the blog post where you can find a full guide for implementing this solution. There is also a QR code so you can scan this to take you direct. Feel free to connect with me using the details below and let me know if you have any comments or questions regarding the solution. I hope for you, like me, it sparks ideas regarding the art of the possible with all that technologies. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Leon. Really, really great stuff. And it's a absolutely brilliant set of technology being demoed on this setup. And it's great to see actually how your tube line, status line thing is evolving. It's been a dynamic SPFX report. It's now a bot. It's evolving all the time across the different technologies in Microsoft 365. So really, really cool stuff. And April is reaching out certainly for getting you to demo this in a Power Platform community calls as well. So this is really, really, really great stuff. Thank you for that.
Excellent. Thank you.
And thanks, Leon.